Kara Vale stood at the edge of the combat arena, her boots silent on the polished obsidian floor. The ceiling arched high above, glittering with constellation map lights meant to remind cadets of what waited beyond these walls, a galaxy watching, judging. And here, in this brutal amphitheater, judgments were delivered with fists. The instructor's voice rang out like a blunt weapon. Late again, human! Kara didn't flinch. She stepped forward, spine straight, expression unreadable. Redirected by security, sir. Instructor Glax's thorax sneered. Towering and broad-shouldered, his Krellic physiology made him look like a living wall of muscle and bone. His exoskin glinted faintly, armored and naturally ridged. His voice dropped low, coated in sarcasm. Of course. The human had trouble finding the right hallway. Shall we call in a translator too? Laughter flickered across the ranks of cadets. 12 species? No one else from Earth. Kara met his gaze without blinking. No translation needed. The room quieted. Even the dull-witted Yevons recognized the tension coiling in the air. Glax's eyes narrowed, then gestured lazily toward the arena circle. Good. Join us. Today is demonstration day. Kara took her place beside the others, Chirk, a six-limbed Mral who moved like smoke, Vela, the silken-skinned Argosian with Nero-whip reflexes, and Dorvax, a brutish Granic twice her size. Each cadet was called forward one by one to face another. The objective wasn't to win, it was to show understanding of technique, restraint, and species-aware engagement. Kara waited. She watched. The Mral fought with fluid strikes, dodging rather than damaging. The Argosian twirled her prey into submission with finesse. The Granic roared and charged. Each combat was fast, calculated, and safe. When Glax's voice cut through the arena again, it came with finality. Last match of the day. Cadet Kara Vale, face me! Every head turned. Even Vela flinched. Kara stepped forward, her mind already calculating. This wasn't protocol. Instructors didn't fight students. Not here. Not this way. She said nothing. Glax was already removing his overcoat, revealing rows of ossified plates along his forearms. I've heard stories, Vale. Earth breeds monsters. You kill for food. You survive by pain. I want the class to see it firsthand. He cracked his knuckles, each pop like a ticking bomb. Come. Make your species proud. Kara moved into position, knees loose, shoulders relaxed. She didn't take a stance. Just stood there, still, eyes focused. I won't attack, she said quietly. Glax grinned wide, like a predator offered prey. Then defend. He struck. The first blow was fast. A backhand hook aimed at her head. Kara ducked it, pivoted away, and reset. No aggression, only control. Some cadets gasped. She had predicted his move. Glax came again, now a feint into a knee strike. Kara shifted, absorbed it with her thigh, and rolled with the momentum, landing softly 2 steps away. Still no response. His eyes flared with contempt. Move like prey, die like prey. Then came the third strike, too fast, too hard. It wasn't a demonstration. It was an execution disguised as teaching. His knuckled fist connected with her jaw, full force. The sound echoed like a whip crack. Kara flew backward, her body slamming into the arena wall with a sickening thud. Someone shouted. It wasn't clear who. A pause fell over the arena like a dropped curtain. Kara didn't move. Glax turned to the cadets, voice triumphant. You see? Even Deathworlders bleed. Then the sound of footsteps. Soft. Measured. Kara stood. Her lip was split, blood trailing down her chin. But her spine was unbent, her hands at her sides, and her eyes, those calm, ice-cold human eyes, fixed on him. You shouldn't have done that, she said evenly. Glax's grin faltered. Only for a heartbeat. But the cadets saw it. Kara stepped forward. He barked. Don't you dare! She was already in motion. Her hand shot forward, not a punch, not a strike, but a single tap to a nerve cluster behind his left elbow. His arms spasmed, useless. She pivoted, spun behind him, and with surgical precision, drove her knee into the juncture of his spine and pelvis. Glax dropped to one knee. Kara didn't speak. She reached around, placed 2 fingers beneath his jaw, and pressed. Not enough to harm, just enough to show him that she knew exactly where to apply pressure. He froze. Not in fear. In the sudden realization that this was not a fluke. This was anatomy knowledge. Practice. Patience. Kara whispered, low enough that only he could hear. I didn't come to fight you. But you made it necessary. Then she stepped back, calm as snowfall. Glax collapsed. The room was silent. Council observers, usually silent fixtures in upper decks, stood now. One of them turned to a comms officer. Record. Timestamp. Forward this to Galactic Command. The arena doors hissed open behind Kara. She didn't wait for applause. There wouldn't be any. She walked past the cadets. Past their stares. No one moved to stop her. Only Vela spoke, barely a whisper. She didn't win that fight. She survived it, without becoming a monster. Kara didn't hear it. But even if she had, she wouldn't have smiled. This wasn't victory. This was warning. And the galaxy had just received it. The infirmary lights buzzed faintly, cold and sterile. Kara sat on the edge of a cot, her posture relaxed but ready. A fine line of dried blood streaked her jaw, untouched. No nurse had dared approach her yet. Across the room, Instructor Glax was silent, his breathing shallow. His left arm twitched sporadically, residual nerve disruption. His face was bruised, jaw dislocated. Medbots hovered over him with clinical detachment, recording, scanning, rebuilding. He hadn't spoken since the takedown. A holographic screen on the far wall displayed a blinking amber alert. Human combat incident under review. Council seal stamped underneath. Kara didn't care about the review. That wasn't the real trial. She was waiting for the conversation. The doors slid open with a soft hiss. Counselor Yadrin stepped in, Voran species, skeletal and tall, with sapphire-tinted skin and glowing ocular implants. His voice was melodic, too calm to trust. Cadet Vale. Kara looked up but didn't stand. Yadrin clasped his hands behind his back and examined the room. An instructor incapacitated. A cadet uninjured. Strange balance, wouldn't you say? Kara replied flatly. He struck first. I neutralized the threat. Yadrin chuckled softly. Your restraint was surgical. She said nothing. He walked over, studying her face as if it held some ancient cipher. We had our doubts, you know. About letting a Deathworlder in. You're not exactly known for diplomacy. I didn't come to make friends, Kara said. I came to learn. Ah. And you taught instead? Kara's gaze sharpened. Only after being made an example. Yadrin smiled, but it didn't touch his eyes. You should understand what you've done. You humiliated a Krellic instructor. That's not just a man, it's a political wall. A symbol. Kara stood now. Calm. Centered. Symbols break. They should, if they're built on arrogance. Yadrin's amusement faded. Be careful, Kara. Galaxies don't run on truth. They run on perception. She stepped closer, not threatening, just unshaken. Then maybe it's time they saw what reality looks like. The next day, Kara was cleared to return to class. The corridors felt heavier. Eyes followed her, some curious, most afraid. The silence wasn't respect. It was calculation. Inside the combat theory chamber, cadets murmured as she entered. Vela sat a little straighter. Chirk's 4 eyes flicked toward her, then away. Even Dorvax, who once joked about human fragility, shifted his weight when she passed. She sat in her assigned seat, arms folded. The lesson on multi-species grappling began. A different instructor. No mention of Glax. No mention of anything. Until Chirk raised a spindly hand. Instructor, he said slowly, can the human explain her tactics during yesterday's engagement? Heads turned. The instructor hesitated, then nodded. Cadet Vale, would you care to demonstrate? Kara rose, walked silently to the center mat. Chirk met her, hands raised in mock defense. Don't break me, he chirped. She gave a half smile. I don't need to. She moved fast, no flourish, no aggression. Her fingers tapped his pressure points, guiding his limbs, redirecting his motion like water shaping stone. Within seconds, Chirk was kneeling, arms pinned by nothing but leverage and anatomy. Gasps echoed. Kara let go, stepped back. I don't overpower, she said, addressing the room. I outlast. I read. Deathworlders survive by knowing exactly what breaks and when. The instructor nodded slowly. Efficient. Controlled. Very well, Cadet Vale. Back at her seat, Vela leaned in. You made them rethink everything, she whispered. I didn't want to, Kara replied. But I think it was the only language they'd listened to. Later that evening, she returned to the meditation courtyard, a ring of gravity-suspended stones under a canopy of projected stars. It was quiet, her favorite kind of space. No eyes. No judgments. She sat cross-legged on one of the stones, breathing slow, eyes half-lidded. Then a voice broke the stillness. You could have killed him! She turned. A Krellic cadet, smaller than Glax but unmistakably similar, stood at the edge of the ring. Kara straightened. You're his son? Nephew, he corrected. John Thorak. He walked forward, each step heavy. Kara didn't rise. I came to watch you fall, John admitted. But you didn't. You rose. And he didn't. She nodded once. No satisfaction in her expression. He stared at her for a moment, then said, He needed it. He's been breaking cadets for years. Nobody ever stopped him. Kara tilted her head. And you? I kept my mouth shut, he admitted. I thought it was strength. A pause. I'm sorry, he said finally. You didn't deserve that. Kara blinked. Of all the things she'd expected, apology was not one of them. I didn't want to be the symbol of something, she said. I just wanted to train. You are now, John replied. Whether you like it or not. He turned to leave, then hesitated. For what it's worth, my father would have hated what you did. But I think it took more strength than he ever had. She watched him walk away, silent. Then looked up at the stars again, each one a battlefield or a birthplace, depending on the story told. And hers was only beginning. Back in the council chamber, a secure transmission blinked to life. Counselor Yadrin addressed the gathered species. We have witnessed restraint where we expected chaos. Intelligence where we predicted violence. Cadet Vale has shown the galaxy that Deathworlders are not just survivors, they are strategists. A Glarn emissary interrupted. She is still dangerous, Yadrin replied. So is any weapon when wielded with purpose. He pressed a command. A new label appeared in Kara's file. Tier 1 operative potential, flag for diplomatic field testing. Yadrin smiled, ever so faintly. Let's see what else she can teach us. Kara Vale stared at the datapad glowing on her desk. Her name blinked at the top in sharp white letters. Below it, a classification she'd never expected, Tier 1 operative candidate, provisionally cleared for off-world trials. She didn't move. Didn't smile. Didn't react. Outside the dormitory window, twin moons hovered over Draven's sky like silver watchers. Wind slid across the courtyard stones in soft spirals. Everything felt too calm for what that datapad meant. Vela knocked once before entering. They're calling it an incident. That's how the files read now. Just a field incident. Kara closed the pad. That's generous. They also reinstated Glax, Vela added. But with a leash. Council supervision. Of course, Kara muttered. She wasn't angry. She understood the game now. Power didn't need to be fair. It only needed to be careful. Vela sat across from her, legs crossed, eyes sharp. They're sending you to Grell Station for combat diplomacy tests. Did you know? I was informed, Kara said. Briefly. They're throwing you to the edge of the galaxy. That's where humans thrive, isn't it? She replied. Edges. Vela frowned. You're not just another cadet anymore. You're a symbol, Kara. And symbols get used. Kara stood. Then I'd rather be a sharp one. The shuttle launch was quiet. No ceremony. No goodbyes. A council aide escorted her to the pad. Jarn was already there, standing stiffly beside a cargo container. He wore standard Krellic cadet armor, but his posture was different now, more grounded. Less like his uncle. I figured you'd leave without saying anything, he said. I figured you'd stay silent like everyone else. Jarn shrugged. Hard to stay silent when the galaxy's rewriting itself in front of you. Kara paused before the shuttle ramp. Is that what you think this is? Rewriting? I think, he said slowly, that you broke something more important than my uncle's pride. You broke expectation. She nodded once. Good. Jarn hesitated, then extended a clenched fist, Krellic style. She tapped it with her knuckles, no words exchanged. He stepped back. She ascended the ramp. Inside, the pilot, a bored-looking Telari, didn't ask questions. Just input the coordinates, and engaged liftoff. As the ground shrank away, Kara looked down at the Academy compound. The same ring where Glax had tried to humiliate her now looked small. Like a childhood memory already fading. Grell Station was nothing like Draven. Floating at the edge of neutral space, it was equal parts fortress and crossroads. No unified governance. Every species had their own ward. Tension hung in the air like static. Kara was escorted to her temporary quarters by a mute security drone. Everything was efficient. Cold. Observed. On the second day, she was summoned. Not to a training hall. Not to a classroom. To a war room. 12 figures sat in a half-circle, faces half-lit by the hologram in the center, an image of a border skirmish site. Tensions were rising between the Tekri and the Zal. In the center, Counselor Yadrin waited. He gestured toward the projection. This is where you're going. Kara studied the map. What's the objective? You're going in as a third-party liaison. No weapons. No armor. Your presence alone is the message. She raised an eyebrow. That I'm a threat? That you're proof. Yadrin corrected. Proof that Earth can send someone who knows how to break a spine and still chooses not to. She looked at the other counselors. Some stared with fascination. Others with thinly veiled distrust. Why me? She asked. You're the first, Yadrin said. And the only one who didn't flinch when the galaxy struck first. 2 days later, Kara arrived at the disputed zone. The Tekri compound was covered in radiant moss and humming defensive fields. The Zal base shimmered with biotech barriers. Between them, 100 meters of scorched no-man's land. She crossed it alone. No escorts. No comms. The Tekri delegation emerged first, thin, metallic-skinned, their leader cloaked in ceremonial bronze. He didn't greet her. Only scanned her face. You are the Deathworlder? Kara nodded. The Zal followed. Bulbous, multi-eyed, pulsing with phenomenal heat. Their matriarchs slithered forward, scenting the air. You are human? Yes. The two delegations waited, expecting a speech, a demand, a position. Kara gave none. Instead, she sat in the dirt between them, knees bent, palms open. Silent. Both sides hesitated. Confused. One of the Zal hissed something. A Tekri clicked his mandibles. Still, she didn't move. After 10 minutes, the Tekri leader stepped closer. What are you doing? Listening, Kara said. The soil here is still warm. Blood still fresh. You both want the same thing, dominance. But someone has to be the first to sit down. They stared at her. Eventually, the Tekri leader sat. Then the Zal matriarch followed. Conversations began. Not peace. Not yet. But something changed. Because the Deathworlder didn't come to conquer. She came to witness. And that, somehow, was worse for those who wanted war. Back on Grell Station, Yadrin received the report with a faint smile. She sat in the dirt, he repeated, amused. The Glarn emissary frowned. What strategic value is that? Yadrin turned to him. You don't understand humans yet. You think strength means domination. But sometimes, it's what you don't do that reshapes the room. That night, in her quarters, Kara received a new message from Earth Command. Encrypted. Short. You did more with stillness than fleets ever could. Prepare for Phase 2. Welcome to the long game. She exhaled slowly, leaned back in her seat, and looked at the stars outside the viewport. Symbols weren't always forged in fire. Sometimes, they were built from bone, silence, and an unshaken spine. And the galaxy was finally learning what a Deathworlder really was. Asked ChatGPT. The silence in the chamber was too heavy to be natural. It wasn't peace. It was the kind of hush that hovered just before the atmosphere cracked under a blade of truth. Kara Vale stood alone before the council again, no escort this time. No advisor. The projection screen behind her replayed footage from the neutral zone, the Tekri and Zal sitting cross-legged on sunbaked ground, their weapons untouched, as she remained still between them. It had been 6 days since the incident. The ceasefire had held. She hadn't said a word during the entire negotiation. And still, somehow, the lines had softened. Counselor Yadrin adjusted the cuffs of his robe, speaking like a man accustomed to authority and uncomfortable with deviation. Your report was minimalist. Kara met his gaze. It matched the mission. From the side, a counselor from the Teresian bloc leaned forward. You're aware, Cadet, that your approach defied every expected protocol. You did not take command. You did not argue terms. You merely, Saturday. Yes. And you believe this was sufficient? No, Kara said. But it was necessary. Yadrin's smile was faint. Measured. Explain. Kara took a step forward, not bold, just unafraid. Both factions wanted a fight. If I offered anything structured, they would have twisted it to justify an advantage. So I offered nothing. I didn't show strength. I didn't posture. I just endured the tension until one of them cracked. Then the other followed. And if they hadn't? Then I'd still be sitting there. A ripple of murmurs passed through the chamber. One of the Andrellan counselors, blue-veined and lined with crystal growths, narrowed her gaze. You're suggesting patience over projection. Submission as strategy? No, Kara replied. I'm suggesting that in a galaxy full of war-bred minds, humility is more terrifying than any weapon. They knew I could have ended that standoff violently. Instead, I waited. And it made them wonder what else I knew that they didn't. The chamber quieted again. Yadrin nodded once. You understand, of course, what that makes you now. Kara didn't blink. A threat. A representative, he corrected. One that cannot afford to make mistakes. Later, she walked alone through the station's observation deck. Ships passed outside in silence, freighters, cruisers, diplomatic vessels. Lives moved behind them. She didn't envy them. She preferred this, motionless glass, silent engines, distance between herself and noise. The hum of footsteps broke her reflection. Vela's voice followed. They're calling you the whispered diplomat. Kara turned. Catchy. They're circulating the footage. Even the media back on Earth is celebrating. You're a phenomenon now. I didn't ask to be. No, Vela agreed. But you are. And that means eyes. Expectations. Pressure. Kara pressed a palm to the glass. I didn't come here to be an example. Vela stepped beside her. You didn't. You became one anyway. That's what happens when a Deathworlder walks into a galaxy used to fear. Kara's voice dropped. Do they respect me? Vela hesitated. They're afraid to disrespect you. That's a start. The message from Earth came 3 hours later. Not another mission. A summons. Return home. Kara packed silently. The walls of her quarters looked the same, but the air felt thinner, like the station itself knew she no longer belonged to it. At the launch bay, Yadrin waited. Not to lecture this time. Just to watch. "You earned this departure," he said. "I didn't do it for approval." He gave her a rare, almost human look, part amusement, part respect. "No. You did it because someone had to." Kara boarded without another word. Earth looked different when she returned. Not in geography or skyline, but in how people looked at her. Eyes lingered longer. Salutes came faster. Civilians crossed paths to get a glimpse of her. She wasn't just Kara anymore. She was that girl, the one who faced down an instructor, who knelt between enemies, who bent nothing and changed everything. Inside a secure briefing hall buried beneath old Geneva, she faced Earth's brass. Military leaders. Intelligence heads. Strategic operatives. A woman with silver in her hair, Commander Arlen, led the room. "You've made waves, Kara. The Council has requested joint deployment rights with human assets. That's never happened before." Kara folded her arms. "They trust us now? They fear falling behind," Arlen replied. "And that's almost the same thing." She slid a file across the desk. Kara didn't touch it. "What's the assignment?" Arlen's tone shifted tighter. "You won't be going in as Kara Vale anymore. Not officially. No badge. No rank. Just presence." Kara's brows lowered slightly. "What am I becoming?" "A fulcrum," Arlen said. "You'll walk into volatile places and keep them from snapping. Not with weapons. With poise. With silence. And when silence fails, with force." Kara's throat tightened, not from fear, but weight. "I'm not a diplomat." "No," Arlen said softly. "You're a Deathworlder. That means they'll listen." 2 weeks later, Kara stood alone on a shuttle bound for Triner V, another pressure point, another fuse waiting for spark. She leaned back in her seat, eyes closed. Beneath her jacket, a small silver pin rested on her collarbone. No rank. No symbol. Just an etching in old Earth script. "Restraint is strength." The pilot spoke through the intercom. "Touchdown in 4 minutes. Storms active over southern terrain. Visibility low." "Copy," Kara replied. "Prep a ground drop. I'll walk in." A pause. "Alone?" "Yes." She stood, checked her gear, minimal, precise. Just enough to survive. Just enough to be seen. And as the shuttle doors opened to the howling wind of a foreign world, Kara Vale stepped into it without hesitation. She didn't smile. She didn't flinch. She just walked. And somewhere far behind her, the galaxy turned its head. Because the Deathworlder hadn't just survived the system. She was starting to change it.